Buonasera a tutti quanti, ragazzi, benvenuti tutti quanti. Come vedete, il nostro ospite, il nostro mentore è già qua presente, Yolt. Qualche breve informazione in italiano, poi dopo passiamo in inglese. Yolt, we have only few information in Italian and we will finish, we start in English, ok?
Sì,
Allora, vi ricordo, vi ricordo a tutti quanti i partecipanti che parteciperanno, che partecipano solo ai webinar, che quindi non andranno all'evento del 6 e del 7 novembre, di mandare una mail con la richiesta di partecipare al 10 novembre per lo speed date con i mentori dei webinar, perché per voi che non potete venire all'evento dal vivo, vorremmo darvi la possibilità di partecipare a un altro tipo di speed date ed in modo che possiate mostrare i vostri progetti a Ed, a Valerio, a Yolt, a Diego e a Lucio. Quindi vi chiedo, se non l'avete ancora fatto, oggi si è arrivata solo una mail riguardo, vi chiedo di mandare le mail con la richiesta per la partecipazione. Mentre invece per i partecipanti dell'evento dal vivo, ricordo che se vengono all'evento anche del 6, quindi il tour Zamperla e Panel System, chi ancora non l'ha fatto di mandare la mail per la richiesta del pullman, a meno che non preferiate essere automuniti, però io vi consiglio vivamente, visto che la cifra è poca, 10 euro per il biglietto dell'autobus, di farci il viaggio tutti assieme, perché è un momento per fare networking, anche quello, un momento per stare assieme, per conoscersi meglio, sia con i vostri colleghi, con noi anche e con altri mentori e altri professionisti. E per l'ultima cosa, complimenti ancora che ha fatto i progetti per ieri sera, da parte mia, di Daniele e di Erika, di nuovo rinnoviamo i complimenti e non vediamo l'ora di vedere i prossimi progetti. Oggi o domani vi manderemo un messaggio su WhatsApp per organizzare la prossima call della settimana prossima extra per vedere i progetti di solo le persone che non hanno potuto partecipare a quella precedente di ieri. Ora lasciamo la parola a Yolt, una piccola introduzione per introdurre il nostro mentore. Now Yolt will start in English. Um, it's a pleasure for me to introduce Yolt to all of you guys. Yolt and I, we met a couple of years ago and we worked together in a Next Gen Showcase program. Walt was our architect and was responsible for following the entire schematic part and of the project and more. I can say that he is a great professional and a new generation who immediately came and worked to success in our theme park industry. He works in Netherlands, is from Netherlands, and the country that has some of the most beautiful theme park we have in the world, like Efteling, Toverland, Wallaby, and many, many others. Now I will hand over to Jolt to explain the next phase, which comes after the concept phase. Jolt, thank you very much, and it's your turn now.
all right. Well, thanks, Sergio, for introducing me, and thanks for inviting me to present here. I guess I will share my screen, and I have to send a request.
Yes, I think it works.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, sure.
All right, then I will begin with my presentation. My presentation is about the schematic phase. Sergio asked me to present something about this because you are working on a project and undergoing each of the different phases in the design process. Uh, Sergio mentioned it because I do some architecture work. I mainly work also in the schematic phase of projects. I will first start a bit with who I am. Sergio also mentioned already, I'm Jolt Wiersma. That's me. I'm 28 years old. I am from the Netherlands. I'm from a little medieval city called Delft. It's very picturesque with many small streets. It kind of feels like the Efteling sometimes. In my free time, I like to go cycling and I like to go speed skating. Every Tuesday and Thursday I go. I also like to play piano and I like to draw. And I like to build things with wood and cardboard and paper. And I would consider myself to be both a creative person and a technical person. And because of that, that triggered me to follow a certain educational path. I wanted to study architecture, and I studied architecture in Delft in the Netherlands. I did the bachelor architecture and the master landscape architecture, so both buildings and outdoor spaces. And my research focused on how to integrate storytelling into public space design. So I worked on this project in Antwerp. That city has underground tunnels and nobody knows they are there, but they are a historic element with many stories. And in my project, it was about bringing these stories back to life, back to the surface, and how to make those, integrate those stories into public space. It was also about integrating systems like water management and planting and uh, materials, that kind of stuff. So it was also very technical, creative and technical together. And I always had an interest in how this works in theme park design. This picture of the tunnels underneath Disney World, it's also kind of like my project. The world above tells a story, but underground is an entire technical system that makes it possible. So I had this interest in theme park design, and I then joined the online course Next Gen Showcase, where I met Sergio. Um, the Next Gen Showcase, it's currently called the Immersive Design Academy, but it's an educational program for aspiring themed park professionals where you work in a team environment to design a fictional theme park land or attraction, and you get educational sessions from different professionals and also present to those professionals. And this allows you to, or allowed me to build a portfolio and show professionals what I could do. And that's actually how I landed my current job at a company called Van Hoorn Studios. This company that I work at is a producer of family entertainment like theater and musical productions. We also direct television shows and write books. We do events and merchandising, and we create theme parks and resorts. And the theme parks and resorts is the branch where I mainly work in. And my role there is architect and landscape architect for the newly being built theme park, De Tovertuin. And I will tell you just a little bit about De Tovertuin, which is that new theme park being built in the Netherlands. It's based on the Dutch children's characters Woezel and Pip, which are two puppies who live with their friends in the magic garden. So this is mainly a children's theme park. It's an existing IP with existing characters who each have existing personalities, an existing art style, and an existing visual style. And when I joined this project, the question was, how do we physically translate this idea, this IP, into a theme park and resort? So like in any design project, you go through the design phases. So starting at the blue sky phase, moving to the concept phase, then the schematic phase, then the detail phase, and the construction phase. But like I said, we already had an idea. We had an IP. It was Woozle and Pip with the existing art, the existing stories. So we went right into the concept phase actually and started making concept art. Our illustrators created certain scenes. Our show writer developed some storylines. And this was all made visual in concept art, which was very abstract, very exploratory. So thereafter, it was my job to draft the idea into schematic plans. So translate the space that we have into a master plan, make designs for furniture, decorations, the dark ride, fly-through models, anything that so that we can visually explore the concept. And then going into engineering that idea, which is to in the detail phase. So by giving everything dimensions and making sure that the the things that need to be built can be built. And actually, now we are moving into the construction phase, or have already been in the construction phase for a bit, and we are building all of those elements. And we are set to open this park in March of next year, in 2026. So it's a very fun project to be involved in all phases, but mainly the phase where I work in is these three phases, the concept phase, schematic phase, and detail phase, because as architect, you have to know how to translate your concept into schematic, but also design your schematic so that it can be engineered in the detail phase. So approximately these three things I will talk about today, but mainly the schematic phase. So the schematic phase, in my opinion, the schematic phase has actually two sub-phases. You, of course, start with designing, which is actually translating your concept art. And then you go into the second sub-phase, which is the documentation, which is organizing your drawings. So let me start with the design part. So what is the design part? The design part of the schematic phase is about translating your concept art, your conceptual idea into plans, into schematic plans. So in this example from the Efteling, on the left, you have the concept art, which is very abstract, very atmospheric, still exploratory. It's flat because it's painted. But in the schematic phase, you have to turn it into something with dimension, something that is functional, something that has been coordinated with other disciplines like operations teams, like retail teams, food and beverage, the service and maintenance teams. So that is the design phase, how to go from concept to schematic. And I will go through some theories, some practical things about design. One of the first things you do is to set up your space and set up the guest flow. And I always, when I start, I like to work with these 5 elements. They're actually elements from an important architecture book called Image of the City from Kevin Lynch. And he describes paths, landmarks, nodes, districts, and edges. Paths can be primary paths or secondary paths. Landmarks, of course, are the things that are focal points. Nodes are places like hubs, squares, or other places you pause. Districts are your areas of identity, so different lands, different worlds. And the edges are the things that kind of guide you through these districts and other elements. So in this example, again from Efteling, in the fairy tale forest, it's of the Sleeping Beauty scene. The concept was to have a large castle on a hill, and to make it look bigger, the designer didn't lead the path straight to the front, but he made the path go around to the back. And along the front, they placed a edge of water to make it look far away and even bigger. And the path kind of meanders around this and plays into this mystery that the concept art tried to show. I'll give you some useful practices. Things like primary paths in large parks, they're usually 8 to 12 meters wide. Secondary paths are narrower, 3 to 6 meters wide. And you always have to think about emergency routes. Where do emergency vehicles need to go, and how wide do they have to be? Minimum 4 meters. And think about if you want your routing to loop or have shortcuts or dead ends. The fairy tale forest in the Efteling is actually a loop, and it has a lot of these meandering paths, like at the Sleeping Beauty castle, to create these reveals on the landmarks, but also shortcuts to allow for the guest flow that they need. And of course, Disney, they have the very well-known hub and spoke space with clear landmarks that radiate from the center. And that center is that central meeting point where everyone can collect and, oops, meet. Also, things like Monsters Inc. Land or the Muppet Courtyard, they are more dead ends, and they are like rest spaces off of the main path. In Plopsaland Resort, the resort with all the vacation homes, it's also a loop, but this is more functional because cars can travel easier in loops in such parks than in dead ends, because dead ends would take in a lot more space in a resort, and in these cases you need as much room for houses as possible. So when I start off drafting such spaces, I usually use Revit, which is a program by Autodesk. It's similar to ArchiCAD and AutoCAD and Vectorworks. But actually, the best practice is to just start sketching by hand, because then you can easily erase and draw again. And you're not so limited by the tools in your drafting program. What programs like these can do is help you establish form and scale from the concept art. Like I said, concept art is often very flat. It looks flat, but real life is 3D. So using 3D models to make building masses, helps you make proportions and come to a composition that is near to what is visualized in your concept art. So the useful practice here is to build a fly-through model so that you can examine your model at eye level, see it from different angles, compare it to your concept art, see where you need to shift things. You might have to use forced perspective if things are have to look bigger or have to look smaller. It's always useful to place a human in your model for a scale reference. And it's useful to use this 3D model to use as an underlay for refining your concept art. So to make your concept art more close to what it will become in the real situation. Disney, of course, also works with translating concept art to a 3D model. You can see the storybook circuits from Disney World. On the bottom, you see the concept art, and on the top, it's been translated into a 3D model with the correct space and guest flow. And here they can look at the correct building masses and create new concept art if they have to. But you don't have to work always in a 3D model. You can also build physical models. For example, the Lion King model for Disneyland Paris. You can really get down and look to see if the sight lines are correct and get a good feel of the proportions. Also in the Efteling, when they were designing the Grand Hotel, they used a physical model to see what the proportion would be of the hotel in comparison to the existing entrance, to see if they needed to make it bigger or smaller. But size is always something that stands in relation to program and function, but I will get to that in a bit. But first, a program that I use to do modeling. I use Rhinoceros 3D for complex models with organic shapes and that kind of stuff. It's similar to SketchUp. You can use SketchUp too, or Blender, which is free, or Maya. But I use Rhinoceros, and I import these models into Revit to get a complete model, drafting model. Like I said, program and function is also important. It was very important when they designed the Efteling Grand Hotel. Of course, they want to house a certain number of guests, but also not make the building too big in comparison to the existing entrance. So they have to they've had to figure out a good way to include all the programs they needed, such as retail space, food and beverage space, storage space, maintenance areas, and in the case of dark rides or that kind of things, the queues and show scenes. These are all spaces that have to fit in the mass that feels right to the concept art. In the case of the Efteling Grand Hotel, they had to use space very efficiently, but they still had to place these air ventilation machines on the roof. But because they didn't want to just place them on the roof, they decided to place them inside the roof. This is also something they do in Symbolica. So it's a very efficient use of space. So it's a really big puzzle on how to get spaces, how to make efficient use of space. These are some guidelines you can use. For queues. You should measure about 0.25 square meters per person. For retail and food and beverage, those spaces both need storage and a kitchen. and there's a little ratio you can use. For retail, around 30% should be storage, and for food and beverage, about 40% of the entire area should be storage or kitchen. But it's always good to talk with people from the actual operation side, the food and beverage people and the retail people, to ask what exactly their requirements are for space. In this example from Plopsaland, which this is the Boomba Circus. This is a good example of space use. You can see in the floor plan, the layout, the back of house areas are the yellow areas, and the rest is all show space. And what you can see is that most of the back of house spaces are on the edges of the show building. Because, for example, a maintenance room of the dark ride, you need to be able to easily take a ride vehicle in and out of your building, and then it's more useful to place that room on the edge. And the same is for kitchen and storage and theater backstage, because in the morning, all the kitchens will be restocked with food, and that's easier to get to from the edge of the show building than having to go through all the show scenes. And for the theater, when you have to load and unload theater scenics and decorations, you can place a ramp with where a semi-truck will go, easier on the outside of the building than having to take all of these decorations through the building and having them be seen by your guests. Something I noticed in this plan was the toilets. They look like they've been kind of glued to the building. So perhaps this was an afterthought. Maybe they forgot the toilets and just had to stick them there, but I'm not sure. That's just me thinking. But the most important tip I can give about figuring out the right way to do layouts, how to find out what the best puzzle is to just sketch bubble diagrams. Each bubble is the size of the area that you need, each color, the type of function, and use lines to show what rooms need to connect and in which order guest flow will be. Another thing in concept art that has to be translated to schematics are the scenics and the decorations. And oftentimes concept art forgets these things too, which are things like lampposts, seating, trash bins, railings, and fences. Those all have to be designed. And they should, of course, be designed in a way that fits the concept art. Disney often uses standard trash bins and speakers on standard poles, and they paint them go away green. But of course, you can also go for more themed trash bins, themed lampposts, and other set dressing elements that help accentuate the mood of your concept art. There are also some rules for some of these items. For example, lampposts you should place around every 13 meters, so you get the correct coverage of light. And it's always useful to group benches with trash bins. And for the very ugly items, you can use go away green if you don't want people to see them. But my tip is to always look for items that fit as close to the concept art as possible. But it's not always possible to find exactly what is shown in the concept art. And for financial reasons, decorations can't always be custom built. So you should look online at what is available. For example, this concept art of this bench, which is made of an old tree bark. It's probably very expensive and difficult to make, especially if you have a lot of these park benches. But if you search online, you can find suppliers that sell similar items to this concept art, and you have actually the same mood and feeling that the artist in the concept art wanted. So that was some of the design aspects of the schematic phase, the first part of the schematic phase. After you've designed, you would go into the documentation phase. And what is the documentation phase? This is where you organize the schematic plans that you just designed into a production-ready document. So the schematic plans, which were those dimensioned, functional, coordinated drawings, we have to turn them into production drawings, which are drawings of all elements so that they can be engineered, calculated for costs, and essentially be built so that your design is feasible. To do this, you have to make a really big booklet with a lot of pages. And so it's important to organize all these drawings. And you need an organization system for that. And that's done with title blocks. And title blocks are the thing you see here. They are a section of the sheet which include the client name, the designer name, the drawing scale, and the sheet code and number, so that once a contractor or vendor or engineer gets that drawing, they know exactly who designed it in case they have questions. They know what scale it is in case they need to measure something, and they can quickly find it in the entire document. I have here a thin version of the document Sergio and I made for our Shrinktopia project, but there can be many pages in this book. So a useful practice is to code and order these sheets by discipline. For example, all architectural drawings with an A, F for all finishings, M for mechanical drawings, E for electrical drawings, P for plumbing, and so on, so on. And I'll go through some of these disciplines. So starting with architectural drawings. These are essentially the floor plans, the ceiling plans, and the elevation plans of your design, with labels for each architectural element, such as the floors, what type of floor, the walls, the type of walls, and the types of ceilings, the types of doors, the types of windows, all of those elements, so that the contractor, who is the person who's going to build this, will know exactly how many doors, how many windows, what do they look like, how is the floor built, how thick is the wall, what type of ceiling is it, etc., etc. So a useful practice just to make life a little bit easier for the contractor is to add the dimensions to your plans. So lengths, widths, heights, but also the areas of each room, so that the contractor can easily use those numbers to calculate building costs. And here you see a picture of a contractor plan for the new Lion King attraction in Disneyland Paris. And here's some other plans from Disneyland Paris, the Frozen Ever After contractor drawings, and the Splash Mountain contractor drawing. These are essentially the blueprints for what you are building. You can see here all the dimensions, the guest flow, in the legend what each zone is. So as much information as possible about sizes and floor areas and walls and doors and windows. The next discipline that you have to make drawings for is the finishes. These are for the people who will paint your design or put prints on the walls or murals on the walls. This is essentially an elevation view or a floor plan view, any view, but with material tags and material codes. Material tags and codes are these things you see here. They point to an element, in this case, a material. And then with a code, it says what type of material it is, what type of texture it is, if it has a paint code and information like the amount of area or volume that that material has. And this is all to do with calculation again. It's so that the paint department knows exactly how much paint they have to get and where to paint certain colors, that kind of stuff. So here again, a useful practice is to use consistent codes in the material labels so that the painters and finishers can easily read the drawing. So perhaps P for paint colors and M for murals. In this example of Peter Pan's flight, you can see every part of the design has a tag with a code, and then in a certain materials list, each code is explained. What is the material? What is the texture? What color? And other information. Here are some more examples from Disneyland California Adventure. You have the Grizzly River Run, an elevation of the lift hill, in which the color legend is included and all colors are tagged with codes. And in Radiator Springs Racer, something you noticed in rock work is that it fades as it goes up. And this is also something that would have been written and coded in the finishing drawings. So each color on the rock work has a code. Then you have the MEP drawings, which are for mechanical plans, electrical plans, and plumbing plans. So these are for the people who will install the ventilation systems or any other moving parts like lifts, escalators, or the ride system. Electrical plans, which includes lighting, data and network points, audio-visual points, cameras, sensors, all that kind of things. And the plumbing plans. So where is the water, fresh water taps? Where does the sewer go? Where are the toilets? What kind of toilets are they? So again, every item on such a drawing would be tagged again so that in the inventory list, whoever needs to build this can read how much ductwork is needed for example, the ventilation, how much length of cable is needed for lighting, and how many toilets are needed. This drawing here is from our Next Gen Showcase project. It's still a very simple drawing um, because I am not a MEP specialist, so I would always say that you should consult an MEP specialist who will actually make really good plans of this. They will think of the best routes for ventilation and the best places to put the ventilation rafters, the openings. And those kind of plans look more like this. So yeah, in top left, an example mechanical plan with ventilation shafts, and an example electrical plan with all electrical switches, and a plumbing plan. And of course, you as a designer would consult with these specialists to find the best route for all of these elements. Another discipline which you should consult specialists for are the fire safety drawings. In these drawings, you show where is the evacuation path, where is emergency signage, where are fire hoses located, where are fire extinguishers located. Um, like I said, you should consult a fire safety specialist, but some things that I have learned along the way are that you should make your evacuation paths minimum 85 centimeters wide and always design your path so that it never has to cross a track, because crossing a track just takes time, and you don't want to waste time in case of a fire. So here in this plan also of the Shrinktopia project I did with Sergio, you can see our evacuation plan.
I remember all.
Um, Important to remember is that there are a lot of rules about fire safety. So things like signage, it always has to be visible and you cannot decorate it. So even in an attraction like Symbolica, if you look really closely, you'll see the emergency door sign and the sign for the fire hose. It's always visible. Luckily, the light of the emergency sign can be turned off, but it has to turn on in case of emergency. And it must always be visible. So those are the things you have to find a balance in design versus functionality or rules. Then we have the scenic placement drawings. These drawings are especially for the people building the scenic elements and installing the scenic elements. So, for example, set pieces, animatronics, rock work, furniture, all that kind of stuff. And these are placement drawings for an entire building or per scene if you are doing a dark ride. And these show exactly where each element goes. So again, it is should be tagged with a label and coded so that the people who have to build these scenic items can easily find out information about those scenic items. In this placement diagram for Shrinktopia, you can see we color-coded each element. Some elements came back multiple times. For example, the flower prop large is in very many scenes, and in this view, you can essentially count how many of those are needed and send that information to the person who is building it. And then once they install it, they use this plan to know exactly where the things have to go. But like I said, if you're doing a dark ride, you also do this per scene. So placement drawings, floor plans per scene. You also make elevations per scene. And as you can see again in this example from Splash Mountain, each scenic element is tagged, has a label with a certain code. And those codes are used to reference the scenic detail drawings. So these are the fabrication details for each of the set pieces, for the animatronics, for the rock work, etc. And these are pretty much the objects themselves with dimensions and with the materials and finishes labeled as well. And the useful practice here is to make a top, front, side, and a back view so that you can put as much information into this as possible. And so that the person who is building it knows what it looks like from each side. These are some examples of scenic detail drawings from Symbolica. Top and front views. Here on the left is the planets that circle in the observatory scene with dimensions, some of the towers, front view, some of the details on the towers, a front view of the chandelier, of the organ, and of the banners that hang in the queue. So all this information would be sent to the scenic department, including dimensions, and then they would build it, hopefully correctly. So to summarize the schematic phase, it was divided, or I personally divided into two sub-phases, the design phase and the documentation phase. And the design phase was about how to translate your concept art into a schematic plan. So that was about setting up the space and the guest flow, figuring out form and scale, getting the correct program and function into the building masses, and creating scenics and decorations designs. Then the documentation phase, the documentation part of the schematic phase, that was about taking these schematic plans of the design and organizing them into a building, a fabrication ready document. And in that document, it includes sheets with title blocks, and each sheet has the drawings of different disciplines. You have the architectural drawings, which are the blueprints, finishes drawings, which show information about the materials, the MEP drawings, which show mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, fire safety drawings, which show your fire safety systems, evacuation routes, that kind of thing. Your scenic placement drawings, which show where props go, animatronics go, and the scenic detail drawings that show how big the props are, a front view, side view, top view of all these elements. Well, that's basically what I do as architect and landscape architect for the Tovertuin, from concept phase to detail phase with schematic phase in between. I hope you learned something today about design and documentation. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yo. Thank you very much. Really a good presentation and grazie. And first of all, you gave us a wonderful presentation, full of tips. And you remembered me our Shrinktopia journey with your presentation. And thank you very much for all, and thank you for talking about the Next Gen Showcase program and to talk about the software. For example, you can use it like Reddit or Rhinoceros. I think it's useful for all of us. I think everyone need to understand your part because I think if the artistic part and technical part speak together, it's better. And if the best way to involve the artistic side and to involve the technical side to work together is the best way, I think. But I have a question about this. You show us an example, a really beautiful example, like the benches, for example. Talk about we have this concept for the creative department, and we found a solution, for example. But are there any compromise that need to be yet to, sorry, again, there are compromise that need to be between the concept phase and the schematic phase? Because I imagine that the turning drawing in something realizable is not always easy.
So your question is about the compromises that have to be made from concept to
Yes,
schematic.
if you have in your work you have compromise with the
Yes.
artistic department every time or I don't know. I want to understand this because probably for all of us, this thing is really interesting because an
Yeah.
artist, I think, need to understand the technical part because yes, I think this is beautiful. I want to create this beautiful roller coaster, but is it realizable? It's really difficult to pronounce this word in English.
Well, the main factor is money and budget. Um, as a designer, have, like I said in the beginning, I have both a creative and a technical side. So when I am designing, I'm already thinking about how it can be built. A concept artist might not think about that. Um, so that is why an architect is always involved in the earlier phases to help guide the artists in the correct way so that they don't draw something that is impossible to build. So they don't draw floating rocks or um, waterfalls onto something, a material that can rot. Um, a lot of artists they don't have this knowledge, unfortunately. A lot do. But in the cases that artists don't have this knowledge, it is the task of the architect to figure out how can I design something that keeps the same mood, the same atmosphere as concept art, but still be feasible. So that's when these 3D models are very important. So you can look from different angles. But it's also important then to talk with builders to see what their limits are. So maybe they can build something that floats. But I, as a designer, or architect, I as an architect, try to not tell the artists to not draw anything that can't be built, and I guide them in that.
Okay,
I hope
thank
that
you.
answers your question.
Yeah, yes, I understand. I understand. I think um, all artists need to understand, I think, this part. and the architect and designer too, probably. Sì, Andrea, si possono fare delle domande. Now, if you have a question, guys, in English or in Italian, if you want to talk in Italian, which we try to translate. Well, question. Who's the first one? Andrea, do you want to talk? Andrea, vuoi parlare te? Se vuoi ti accendo il microfono. Allora. Ok, Andrea, puoi parlare.
Ok, buonasera. Buonasera. Uh, thank you for your relation. Io ho una domanda, scusate se la faccio in italiano. Volevo sapere se per il musical che ha fatto, che tipo di progetto ha fatto, tipo se scenografo, artistico, tecnico. Ecco, questa è la mia domanda per il relatore.
Okay. You, Andrea, want to understand
Grazie.
about your musical project. Did you work in like Shrek, for example? Did you work like a set designer for this project, or a designer, or an architect?
For Shrek, I did not, but we do have other productions that we do. We did Sleeping Beauty, and I did not do concept art for Sleeping Beauty, but I had the same role as I do in the theme parks. I was tasked with translating the concept art into a model so that the lighting designers could know the depth of the scenes and figure out where the lights would have to go. There is this technical aspect of every stage that the sets go up into the roof, and each set piece is 20 centimeters apart. So there are a lot of spaces where you can put decorations if they have to go up. And my job was to figure out where each thing should stand, each set piece should stand on the stage, um, so that there was enough room for lighting in between, but that it also had the same visual effect as the concept art. So I made the 3D model for the lighting designers. Some of the aspects of the 3D model I also turned into detail drawing with dimensions. Those drawings went to our scenic builders, our building team, and they built those set pieces. So I don't do a lot with theater, but so now and then I get a question about it to do something for it.
Ok,
Andrea, tutto chiaro?
più o meno sì.
Ok.
Se vuoi tradurli un attimino,
Cosa?
grazie. Se puoi tradurli un attimino.
Enrica, però c'è la traduzione così precisa della parte di Yolt.
Sorry, what was the question?
Devi attivare il microfono. Andrea want to understand better if we and I need a really good translator. You know, my English is good, it's good, but not like Erica English. But
Okay, he didn't understand?
yeah, probably. Andrea, non
Okay,
hai capito?
I will say it.
No, ho capito, ho capito,
Ok,
però se potevi un attimino tradurre certi concetti, non li ho capito, non li ho capiti. La maggior parte ho capito, ma certe cose no.
ripeti, scusa? L'ultima parte non ho sentito?
Certi concetti, la maggior parte della risposta l'ho capita, però cioè la maggior parte, non tutti i dettagli.
Ok. Allora, se Erika riesce a fare la traduzione un pochino più precisa della mia, lascio fare a lei, se riesce a attivare il microfono. Però non so se Erika è presente o no. Mi ha abbandonato.
Comunque, Sergio, è tutto chiaro, eh.
Ok, va
Ho
bene, va
capito.
bene. Nel caso poi ti aggiungo delle informazioni. Devo uscire e rientrare. Ok, Erika esce e rientra. Beh, nel caso dopo ci torniamo sull'argomento, Andrea.
Comunque, grazie e thank you.
Thank you, Yolta. We have a problem with our translator girl.
Oh, maybe I can
But
say it in a very short sentence. My task with decorations for musicals and theater productions is to make a 3D model so that the lighting designers can figure out where to place their lights, and so that the people who build the decorations know what size everything has to be.
ok, beh, direi così andrà un po' più chiaro, cioè che ha
Sì,
riassunto un po' quello che fa lui come progetto
certo,
a teatro.
certo, sì,
Tutto chiaro?
tutto chiaro.
Ok, va bene.
Allora mi collego un'altra domanda,
Ok.
già che ne approfitto, e se lui ha una società di produzione di show
No, non ce l'ha. Lui lavora come...
come freelance.
no, lui lavora in un'azienda che si occupa di progettazioni, però non prepara lo show lui proprio prepara la parte più legata alla
Sì,
scenografia, all'allestimento,
sì, sì,
architettura.
perfetto. Sì, sì, tutto quello che è l'engineer stage. Ok.
Sì, praticamente sì, il set design, la parte di engineering e architettura, sì.
No, 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 va bene,
Ok,
perfetto.
ok.
Ok,
Grazie
grazie
Andrea.
mille, grazie, grazie di
Grazie.
cuore.
I answered the second question because Andrea asked you if you work in a company who create something like only show. If I understand correctly, you work in a company, create the show like an architect part, set designer part, and all designing part. Is it correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we do
Uh,
everything in-house.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have another question in the chat.
Thank you, Hold.
Mm.
No problem.
Abbiamo un'altra domanda in chat. Cioè, we have a lot of question. Last question we have in chat about Federico. How effective can Planet Coaster 2 be for the blue sky concept phase, given that the program also includes measurement? Thank you very much.
Hmm. That's a nice question. Um, well, I have never played Planet Coaster because I guess I grew up with Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I think if I start playing Planet Coaster, that I will get addicted. So I won't start playing Planet Coaster. But if you say that Planet Coaster has the ability to add dimensions, um, I don't think it would be used a good use as for the documentation part, but in the design part, you can really figure out how to set up space and guest flow, figure out form and scale, um, see where the different programs go, the different functions. You can add scenic elements like benches and um, uh, uh, lampposts. So in that case, Planet Coaster is a nice alternative to a 3D modeling program. But I would mainly use it in maybe the concept phase and the start of the schematic phase because contractors and builders, they really rely on plans from Revit, from AutoCAD, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, because those things are to the millimeter accurate, and that's what they need. And Planet Coaster is, I don't think, to the millimeter accurate. But like I said, it's a good way to do the design aspect, to figure out space. Yeah.
Yes, I think so about the Planet Coaster because I usually use Planet Coaster as, for example, in the concept phase. For example, I create the track of the coaster and put this on Procreate or Photoshop, and on the track I create, I don't know, the set design, the props, and
Yeah.
all environment and landscape. But I think it's not a, like a CAD/CAM program, but only it's a really good program like a rhinoceros for the theming
Yeah.
for the theme park, but I think it's not good for the schematic part. But for the blue sky and concept phase, I think is
Yeah.
it's a good software.
Yeah. Like I said, I also sketch a lot by hand, and
Okay.
that's no different than Planet Coaster. So it's a good tool to use. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Next one, we have Paolo. Paolo, Paolo, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Eh,
sorry.
Hi, Paolo.
Hi, Sergio. Hi, Old. So I
Hello.
have a question. Um, Earlier you mentioned, if I'm correct, you mentioned that an architect should be involved in the preliminary design phase just to help fellow designers and artists to refine their ideas into something clearer. And does it ever happen to come as close to the blue sky phase? Because I guess that in a role such as yours, it's likely that you could also give some practical advices to ensure a more functional and ergonomic harmony in the attractions and surrounding areas, just so you don't have to make a huge translation from artwork to project.
Um, so your question is, if I understand correctly, um, how free are the artists in the starting phase?
No, actually, my question is, hold on, sorry. Actually, my question is, do you get more involved into the blue sky phase? Do you also get to give your own opinion in the earlier phases of design, or do you just translate artistic ideas? Because maybe you might have better ideas to bring a more functional structure.
Yeah, yeah,
Because someone might say, okay, I want to like build a castle in the sky, and sometimes certain ideas could be much harder, also given to the budget. So that was my question, if you get involved in much
yeah.
earlier phases.
Yes, yes. So the concept artists, they cannot draw every corner, every piece of decorations. So a lot of the concept work I also do myself. Concept art is from one angle. If it does not show what is to the right. So in my 3D model, I fill that in. And then I go back to the concept artist and I talk with them and ask if this is approximately what they had in mind. It's my own idea that I then have designed, but it fits with the original concept art. And like you said, a castle in the sky or a floating rock. If the concept artist draws that, I would immediately say, no, we cannot do that. And then I would come with something, try to come with something that gets the same feeling across. So it's really working together. It's not that a concept artist makes a drawing and they throw it to me and I take over. It's really a communication process. It's not A, B, it's not from A to B, it's really back and forth.
All right, thank you so much. And sorry for the misunderstanding.
Oh, so that's okay.
This is very interesting, Yolt, about not to go to A to B, but uh, um, a work when the old people work together. It's really interesting this part. We have another question from Julia. Julia, are you here?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Hi all, thank you for your presentation. You talk about guest flow, and I wanted to ask, how do you know how many people will be in your theme park, and how will you make sure they will go where you want they to go?
The first part of your question is something I do not know.
Okay.
So the amount of people that will come is something that the operations side of the business knows. They do give me that number, and then I use that little trick of about a quarter square meter per person for a queue to figure out how long a queue line should be or how wide a path should be. So I don't know the answer to that, but that's something that's information that you would get from the operations side. The second part of your question was about how to get guests to go where you want them to go, if I have it correct.
Yes, I know there are some, let's say, tricks. Also, Valerio Mazzoli told us in another webinar that you have a way to more or less let people go where you want.
Yeah, so this is about those 5 elements from the book Image of the City by Kevin Lynch. So he uses landmarks, or he says that landmarks are a way to attract people to go somewhere. Also, nodes, which are squares or hubs, they allow people to go different directions. And if you have landmarks on each direction, you can get people to go that way. Yeah, it's pretty much about revealing new items along your path and sightlines, setting up sightlines, orientation points, that kind of things. And don't add shortcuts between paths if they are not needed, because then people will take the shortcut. So if you want people to go somewhere, don't add a shortcut.
Thank you very much.
I hope that's a little bit of info that's useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we have another question from Luca. Luca, you can talk.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Luke.
Hi, Yolt. I have a question which I already asked to other people which made some of those webinar, but I'd like to have a more technical opinion from you. And the question is, what is the best way to pass from a themed area to another one, and how you can manage this experience from the guests to enjoy?
That's a nice question. There are a few ways. The one that comes to mind right away is to just put up a sign, but that's kind of boring and it's a bit American, I always say, because if your park is full of signs, it's not a very good park, in my opinion. So another way to let guests know that they are moving from one area to another is to kind of let the path flow between elements so that you're kind of crossing a barrier. So kind of like a portal kind of thing. Another thing you can do is make it so that once you enter the area, the first thing you see is an important landmark of that area that sits very close to the identity of that space. So you can decide to make your path curve in a certain direction so that just after that curve you see that landmark, and that's when you know you've entered a new area. You can do it with planting, like trees and stuff. You can, if you plant a lot of trees, you see less sun, more shadow, it gets darker. You get the feeling that you're in a new area. It's also about sounds. For example, in the Efteling, you have one of the lands. It's full of roller coasters, and all you hear is roller coasters. So once you're there, you actually know you're in a different land. So it's about the senses. It's about going from one sense to another, from light to dark, narrow to wide, soft noise to loud noise, things like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay.
Okay, we have a last question in the chat. Michele, from Michele. Is the entire process you described earlier, from the initial idea to the final technical drawings, carried out by one person, or is it a task performed by several departments?
That's also a good question because that differs per where you work. At the company I work, our team is set up that we have a creative team, we have a technical team, we have a decorations team, and we have a building team. I am in the creative team as the architectural designer, and I work with two other people in the creative team, and that is the show designer and the artistic designer. So the show designer thinks of the storyline, what the area should be, what characters, what's the narrative. Then the artistic designer takes that, creates a concept art, and then I translate that. Well, translate. We work together to create something. And we do that in each phase, actually. But as the phases go on, the other teams get more important. For example, in schematic phase, the technical team gets more importance because technical things like lighting and other mechanical elements, they have to be included in the plan then. So that's when I communicate more often with them. And as we start construction of certain things, I communicate more with the decorations team because I create these drawings with top view, front view, side view. So I have to give those drawings to them, and then they come back to me with questions about, can we do this instead? Or we don't have this paint color, can it be something else? And the same thing in the construction phase. At that point, the coordinator of the building team talks more with me about certain things. But we have one person who is the person that connects all these teams, and that is our producer. So they are the person who connects people from different teams. And so, yeah, I guess the architect is a kind of role that works across different teams and across different phases. But concept artists also do that. In the blue sky and concept phase, concept artists make a lot of artwork. But for example, in the detail phase, they make a lot of front views of certain elements. For example, the banners in Efteling, Symbolica, I showed the picture of those, and all the planets, those were drawn by concept artists. I would make a template where they can draw across, and then they draw on top of that in the correct artistic style, and then I combine those drawings and I give that to the building team. So from me, they get the correct dimensions, and the concept artist has already drawn the correct style, the correct expression, correct colors, texture, that kind of thing. So everyone works across the phases, but their tasks will change a little bit.
Thank you, Yolt. Michele, spero che hai capito. Comunque ha detto più o meno quello che ha raccontato prima comunque sul fatto che non è solo un lavoro di andare da A e B, come aveva citato prima, ma è davvero un lavoro, è bello perché è un lavoro di gruppo, questo qua. Quindi tutte le fasi che abbiamo visto anche in questi giorni ci dimostrano quanto comunque è un lavoro di squadra, ma è un lavoro di una singola persona. Ovviamente poi dipende dal tipo d'azienda, anche perché poi un'azienda magari più piccola e magari c'è un'unica persona che si occupa di quelle fasi lì, ma invece nel caso in cui c'è un'azienda più grande, strutturata, è bello che ci sono questi scambi tra i vari department, i vari reparti. Se ci sono altre domande facciamole, se no chiudiamo qua la conversazione con Yolt, la nostra call con Yolt, che è stata sicuramente molto interessante. Yolt, at the moment we don't have a question. Michele, said thank you to you for your answer, and thank you for
Hope it
all your
answered the question.
presentation. I think it's really interesting to understand how it's possible to work together, not like only like a technician, not like only an architect or only a creative, but to work together. And we have a last question from Alessia. This is our last chance. Alessia, where are you? Okay, here. No? Ho sbagliato pulsante, Alessia. Vabbè, va bene lo stesso, Alessia, sei membro, puoi parlare lo stesso. Alessia, try to speak. Alessia,
Sembra che non riesca, Sergio.
ok.
Può.
Try now.
Ha annullato la richiesta, dice.
Ok, ora posso parlare, giusto?
Sì, 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 grazie Alessia. Scusa, ho
Ok.
sbagliato pulsante.
No, ho pensato che avessi sbagliato, allora ho cambiato, ho messo nulla. Ok. I Yolt, is Yolt the name?
Yes.
Is correct.
Yep.
Okay. Is it possible to be specialized just in scenic details drawing, or you have to work like for every part of the project? I mean, you have to draw all the, I know, the ride, like all the part of the attraction, or you can be just in the team for scenic detail. I don't know if you get the
Yes,
question.
I
Okay.
understand. So your question is if your task can only involve making
Yeah.
detailed drawings.
Yeah, just one thing, or you have to be like, I know, like be
Yeah.
good in everything, or you
Yeah.
can be just specialized in something.
Yeah. Well, it just depends how big your team is. We have a very small team where I work. So I do a lot of these drawings. I do everything from architectural, landscape, detail, layouts. Yeah, and anything that has to have a dimension. But in large teams like at Disney or Universal, you indeed have people that are specialized to do the smaller tasks. So you have indeed a person who will only be dimensioning detail items. There will be a person who is only making architectural plans, a person who is only doing electrical plans, a person who is only doing scenic placement plans. And I can go on. A person who only does finishing, a person who only designs fences or railings. It can get very specialized like that. So yeah, it really only depends on where you work and how big the project is.
Okay, so if you're able to do everything, you study a lot. You're able, because I don't know, sometimes when you have to do a lot of things in the different like project, if you have not just to be part of the scenic details, but you have to do everything. You have to know a lot of everything. I know if you understood.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're good.
Yeah, but I guess you don't do it alone because if you have a question about something like the size of that a storage room needs to be, you just ask the food and beverage people. Or if you have a question, how thick is the wood supposed to be, or what material is cheapest to use, then you ask that to the to the scenic set builders. But as an architect, you are indeed, yeah, multidisciplinary. It's my job to bring all disciplines together in a single plan that is feasible. So I get a lot of the information from other people. It's not that I know everything, but it's more that people tell me what is needed and then I draw that.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Do you have a last question, or if we are finished, we say bye bye to Yolta, and we thank you for your presentation. Really, really beautiful, Yolta. Thank you for all tips you gave us tonight, and what do you say in your place, dankjewel for your
Alsjeblieft,
presentation.
geen probleem.
I understand this only in Efteling, you know. Um, Thank you
Well,
very much again for all, and we will see uh, in Monday, 10 of November, to see the project of the team.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for letting me speak here, and good luck.
Thank you, Chuyot. Thank you, Chuyo. See you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye bye,
Bye-bye.
Yolt. Bye. Ciao ragazzi, ciao a tutti.